These are players, for one reason or another, we're looking to pivot off of in Dynasty. So we recommend, if you do have them on your roster, shop them around, see what kind of deals you can get done. We'll give you some example deals as to what you should pursue in return for these guys today. Let's start first with Isiah Pacheco. Look, this one is pretty simple to us. Like, this is the reason he is at the top for us is because we feel like we can make a pretty good case to pivot off of Isiah Pacheco. Last year, he had a pretty good year. He emerged as the Kansas City Chiefs' top running back. Jared McKinnon, who had some flashes the year before, didn't end up doing much. So you had Isiah Pacheco really taking, the running like this his arms all the way. Like, he has the most exaggerated running form I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And I think that helps his dynasty value. But
he's a ground pounder, quite literally, and his head bobs up and down too when he runs. It's pretty awesome.
And we talked about this a little bit on the Fantasy Channel, but Isiah Pacheco last year was the running back 15 in full point PPR leagues. And in points per game, because he did miss 2 or 3 games, he was the running back 14. So whether you want to go on points per game or whether you want to go on total season, which we are big total season advocates, he's a guy that finished as a mid running back too. This is a guy, and this isn't saying much, we know that, but he is being valued as a dynasty running back 1 right now. He's the running back 12 on keep trade cut. And I think the main thing for us is safety with Isiah Pacheco. I don't think Isiah Pacheco is going to be get on the field and like way outproduce what he did last year. 214 points in PPR leagues last year. Again, I think you're going to see in any Andy Reid offense on the rushing side of the ball, I think you're going to see Pacheco, CEH, Imani Bailey, maybe Deneric Prince is there, Keontae Ingram. Look, Carson Steele, Center Grove kid. Look, all of those guys, are they all going to be fantasy productive? No, but do they all have potential to get on the field and be a part of that offense? They do, and we know that because of Isiah Pacheco, because Pacheco was never really supposed to be the guy in the offense. He was drafted in, the 5th round, right? And so came in, he was kind of a nobody. He was a training camp darling for Dynasty. He came in, and now look, we definitely should have adjusted for this Isiah Pacheco, who's 25 years old already. He's an older prospect out of Rutgers, so he came in, and that alone is not a reason to short him. The reason is we think his ceiling from a production standpoint is fairly capped. And when you're looking at the value around him in Dynasty Fantasy Football, let's talk about some example trades together here real quick. Right, even value adjacent to him, you've got Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks is a far better running back and running back prospect than Isiah Pacheco is. Yes. Granted, Isiah Pacheco is on a better offense, so you have to consider that as well. But that being said, he's right there with him, and then you've also got JSN is right there as well next to him. Like, JSN versus Isiah Pacheco, to me, like, you've got one that's got the ceiling in Dynasty of going up to the 3rd, 4th round in the next year, and Isiah Pacheco, who I don't think will increase in value over the next year. This is a guess, but I don't think he will. So JSN is also a good one. Mark Andrews, one of the best tight ends in the league. If you're in a tight end premium league and you can get Mark Andrews for Isiah Pacheco, we're definitely doing that. But then even below Isiah Pacheco is Brian Thomas. And Brian Thomas is a guy that I'm pretty high on, and I'm absolutely taking the 1st-round wide receiver
100%.
Playing with Trevor Lawrence over Isiah Pacheco any day of the year.
Yes.
Any day of the year. So if you can make that swap, we're doing it. Bryce Young is a quarterback who was the first overall pick in the NFL last year. He's below Isiah Pacheco in Dynasty. We're taking that deal. TJ Hawkinson, another elite tight end. We're taking that deal.
Who just keeps falling and falling.
I mean, you can keep going down. Jaden Reed is a guy who we have said that he's a little bit underrated right now in Dynasty. I would easily take him over Pacheco in Dynasty. Debo is down there, and then you get to Rachaad White. You know how we feel about Rachaad White. Rachaad White is somebody that I think if you can get for Isiah Pacheco as a down tier, because this is far enough down the list, you could potentially down tier. That's ridiculous.
And of course, if you want to win your league with Travis Kelce, then you're welcome to do that as well.
Yeah, Travis Kelce, you could down tier to Mike Evans. You could down tier to Rashee Rice on his own team. Like, hello, I'll take the receiver playing with Mahomes over the running back. You can down tier to Devontae Adams or Christian Kirk if you're a contender.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm considering. In my rankings straight up, I'm almost rather have Ramondre Stevenson.
That's what I was going to say.
Isiah Pacheco. I mean, you're talking about 2 full rounds.
2 rounds of value.
2 rounds of value. That's how I don't want to say low on Isiah Pacheco, but that's how low we are on Isiah Pacheco right now, and in our opinion of his price. And again, it's nothing against his production and what he's done. He's been very impressively productive his first 2 years of his career in the most pass game deficient years of the Chiefs dynasty. Let that sink in. Let that sink in, and also let the Marquise Brown signing and Xavier Worthy draft pick sink in as well.
So let's even compare this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in his rookie year, he had 180 rushing attempts compared to Isiah Pacheco's 170 last year, 205 last year, and 54 targets compared to 49 last year for Isiah Pacheco. So from a workload standpoint, you're talking very close workloads from Clyde Edwards-Helaire's first year with the Chiefs and Isiah Pacheco. And what did they do to Clyde Edwards-Helaire the year after he had that year? He was a running back too. What did they do? They cut his carries down by 50%, and they cut his targets in half. And they cut his usage over. I mean, he played in 10 games that year, but he was getting a lot less usage when he was on the field even. So, and what does this tell you? Not that, hey, he's the next Clyde Edwards-Helaire. No. But it does tell you that the Chiefs, in terms of what they do at running back, they don't care who you are. They don't care where you were drafted. They just care, can you do the right thing on the field? And Isiah Pacheco has done that. Congratulations. I think he'll continue to do that. We just think that at price, there are some better options than Isiah Pacheco. And if you're inclined to hold Pacheco because you believe in the Chiefs' offense in being elite, and they also running the ball a fair amount, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all, but I do think that there's some really solid value options around
You're
him.
definitely drafting for floor with Pacheco, and that's drafting for production floor when he's on the field also. And that's not even mentioning, again, like I just alluded hardly to Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy coming into that offense. They literally just added 2 relevant wide receivers. Added. They didn't lose anyone of relevance. You can say MVS, that's not relevant. That's definitely not dynasty and fantasy relevant.
Right.
They just added 2 very good wide receiver prospects and options into their offense that they did not have last year or the year before, and they won 2 Super Bowls with that. And they did it by running the ball. But again, they're trying to even though they won the Super Bowl last year, it was because of how dominant their defense was as the year progressed, and it was not much thanks to their offense. Their offense kind of just got by and got the job done. They know for a fact that after losing against the Raiders on Christmas, that they were going to have to really, really up the talent at the receiver position especially.
Yep.
And they demonstrated that this offseason. That was their focus.
Yeah.
It was 100% their focus. So don't be surprised if his usage goes down just a little bit. And again, once we have this discussion and once we see this kind of play out in 2024, regardless of what he does, his value is going to go down anyways.
Yeah. I agree.
It's just a market play.
Yep.
Next guy that we're going to have here is Baker Mayfield. And I think this is a very, very, very easy discussion to have. Baker Mayfield starts his career for the Cleveland Browns, right? He goes to the cursed franchise and is supposed to be the savior and supposed to be what everyone, wanted Johnny Manziel to be and all these other quarterbacks beforehand and were never. And Baker actually showed some flashes and some promise. And then the market opened up for Deshaun Watson and Stefanski and Barry and that entire front office was like, hey, I think we'd rather have Deshaun Watson than Baker Mayfield. Funny how the turns table, though, and Baker Mayfield actually seems to be a better quarterback than Deshaun.
Correct.
But that aside, it seemed, at least at the time, to make sense. They wanted to get their star quarterback. They let Baker go. Baker goes to Carolina, gets traded for a 3rd-round pick, and he's absolutely crap. He's nothing. He gets traded midseason, actually cut, and goes to the Rams and ends up leading them to a comeback win in a nothing-burger game that no one cared about at the end of the season. And he ends up getting cut and is on the street. The Bucs pick him up, sign him for like a $3 or $4 million deal? Was it $8 million, upwards of that? Maybe, I think he got all of his bonuses or something. And Dave Canales comes into Tampa and comes from Seattle after resurrecting Geno Smith's career, and he does the exact same thing with Baker Mayfield. But what did you do when you watched those games? You saw Baker Mayfield's limitations. You saw what he was capable of doing, and that was exactly what he was capable of doing in Cleveland. That's exactly what he was capable of doing for the 3 games that he played for LA. It's exactly what he's capable of doing with Tampa. And is this a knock against Baker Mayfield as an NFL quarterback? No, I think he's going to be, probably a Band-Aid starter for a while and can, kind of right the ship for a little bit. He is at least in Tampa because he just signed an extension, and that's really, really nice for him and at least insulates his value a little bit. But again, what's the production upside that we're expecting from Baker Mayfield? I mean, you're looking at him last year, his best year ever. Again, like you're expecting this amazing, phenomenal year where you're like, yes, this is what we wanted to finally see from him. And he's wide receiver 10, which again is fine. Yeah. That's more than fine. That's a top 12 quarterback in a Superflex league. That's very, very valuable. But again, think about it contextually. What happened in 2023 more than really any year before?
Quarterbacks got hurt.
multiple quarterbacks got hurt. Like
Yeah.
a lot of guys that were guaranteed to be top 12 quarterbacks on a points per game basis had they played the entire season. I'm talking Aaron Rodgers. I'm talking Joe Burrow. I'm talking Kirk Cousins, Justin
Anthony
Herbert,
Richardson.
Anthony Richardson. That's already 5 that I've mentioned.
Yeah.
Already 5. And I think there might be a couple others that I'm
Joe
forgetting
Burrow.
as well. I think I already said Joe Burrow. I don't know.
Anthony Richardson.
5 I think I already said Anthony.
Kirk Cousins.
I know. 5 quarterbacks, okay? So, look, in a realistic... Because, again, the points per game, 284 fantasy points over 17 games. That's not blowing your socks off, man.
No.
That's like QB2 option that you're plugging in, and you hope he has a good game every once in a while. You can look at it when you see his game log. I mean, 11 points, 7 points, 11 points, 10 points, 6 points, 14 points. A ceiling of his best game in the entire season was 29 points, and if you take that one away, the next best one was 21. Like, that's just... It's just not great when you're looking for upside at the quarterback position in his range. When you're looking at the guys that are going around his price range, you have, again, Rashee Rice, which we already mentioned with the Pacheco price. We would prefer Rashee Rice over Baker Mayfield. The only reason he's going that low is because of the legal stuff. Bo Nix seems to be, according to Sean Payton, the saving grace of the Denver Broncos. Whether you believe that or not, he's a fresh rookie that went in the first round, has significant investment, and is going to be safe for the next couple of years, just with the way that Sean Payton runs his offenses. They're very quarterback friendly if you try not to play outside of the structure of the offense. And that's literally what Bo Nix does so well, is he plays within the structure of an offense. Very, very safe. Ramondre Stevenson just got a multi-year deal. Will Levis going right around this range. I mean, upside alone, even though he's risky, I'd rather take a shot on Will Levis right now and even capitalize on the training camp hype later and get a market value win there.
Yeah.
Just not a fan of his price. Kirk Cousins going way down the line. Kirk Cousins has a safer contract. The only reason he's fallen is because of Michael Penix, but they guaranteed him $100 million. He will be the starter there for at least the next 2 seasons, which is as much as we're guaranteed with Baker Mayfield. And we know what Cousins' ceiling is.
All right, so I want to talk about C.J. Stroud a little bit next. And I want to preface by saying this. C.J. Stroud is probably my favorite player in the NFL. Him and Justin Herbert are my 2 favorite players. I love C.J. Stroud. I loved him in college. I'm not an Ohio State fan. I'm an IU fan. But I just loved the way he plays. And so me advocating to say, hey, let's talk about this at least.
You and I love our pocket passers.
Oh yeah, no, I just freaking love CJ Stroud. Yeah. So again, let's just kind of look over why I want to put him on this list, and maybe I think with CJ Stroud the asterisk here is you only sell for the right price. What is the right price? Whatever a top 4 quarterback in Dynasty is worth. And that's usually a lot. Most of the time, the type of deal we're going to recommend with a top quarterback like this.
Sometimes top 2. You see Stroud go as high as the 2nd overall sometimes.
So most of the times, the deals we're going to look at for guys like this are going to be down tiers to guys that are also going the first round. So quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, like Joe Burrow, like Anthony Richardson, or guys in the 2nd round, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love. So again, this is tough, but when you look at what C.J. Stroud did last year, in PPR leagues, C.J. Stroud was the quarterback 11. Which is good as a rookie. It's good. I guess
well above what we expected.
I'm not sure. Well, some of us may have expected that, but I'm not sure why. Which again, QB11 is not that it's not that crazy. So I would have told you he's probably going to finish as a high end quarterback too.
I think you predicted high end 16 points per game,
and he was at 18.5 points per game. How you remember me saying that?
Because I think we went back and watched it at some point not that long ago. Because you were like 16 points per game, which was a good guess. I think I was 15 and someone else was like 13.
So he was at 18.5. Someone else, nice. He was at 18.5 fantasy points per game last year, which was 7th in the league. And so you account that he missed 2 games. When you put those 2 games back in, it would have finished essentially as the quarterback 7 if everybody was healthy, which is great. But with CJ Stroud, what do we actually expect his production to be last year? Because he had 4,100 yards last year. His over-under for yardage this year is at 4,150. In terms of touchdowns, he threw for 23 touchdowns last year. His over-under for touchdowns is at 28. So if there's going to be a jump in production for CJ Stroud, that's where it's going to be.
That's all got to go up.
You're even talking about his rushing upside not really giving you anything. He did have 3 rushing touchdowns last year, though. So with CJ Stroud, it's how much do you expect his production to increase? Because if his production doesn't go up from being a low-end quarterback 1, I don't think he's drafted at the top end of these drafts next year. which being drafted at the end of the first, in the beginning of the first, there's a bigger difference than you think, a marginal difference in terms of like, yeah, they're going the same round, but look at the value discrepancy between somebody at the end of the first and beginning of the first. Yes. And so if I can down tier to somebody at the end of the first that I feel comfortable is going to maintain that value and get somebody on top, my prediction is that you see CJ Stroud going in the 6 to 12 range next year in Dynasty Startups instead of the 1 to 4 range.
Yes, and that is just based on the evidence that we've seen over the past couple of years of the variance in price in that range as it is. Like, to me, you could just as easily see Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud's current price as the other way around. And they could this time next year flip just as easily as they could stay. And there is obviously safety in investing in CJ Stroud, right? I feel safer taking CJ Stroud at 3 than I do Jalen Hurts, which is why Stroud is now going pretty much consensus 3 or 4 compared to Hurts going now behind him. Yeah. Whereas it was kind of a discussion earlier in the offseason. But with Stroud, the safety with him and his production, I was trying to when we were discussing this off camera, I was trying to figure out, like, rationalize when would he decrease in value, right? Like, what production level would he have to achieve for him to, try it this way, maintain his value?
Top 6.
Yeah. Top 6 is kind of what I landed on. If he ends up being a top 6 producing quarterback just because of his age, just because of his situation, and the Texans being on the up, he's going to be consensus top 4. Yeah. But again,
what are the odds?
That's where he is already.
Right.
So if you just want to gamble, and this isn't like an unsafe gamble, if you just kind of want to play the odds and say, what are the odds that CJ Stroud increases in value at this current price as opposed to decreasing in value a bit more? It's definitely on the other side. It's definitely downward. For sure.
Again, I encourage you, if you're going to do this, you need to get the right deal for it.
Yes.
Because look, if you hold CJ Stroud and he does what he does for you this year and then he does lose a little bit of value, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
It's not going to hurt you a ton, again.
So, again, like an example deal for CJ Stroud. If somebody said, hey, I can sell CJ Stroud and I can get Joe Burrow and Rashee Rice in a second for him, I would probably be taking that deal. Like, that's enough on top to where it's like, yeah, Joe Burrow's as value insulated. He's got the deal, right? He's a pocket passer. He's flip-flopped in value, but their value can end up the same. You get Rashee Rice, you get a second, sure.
Yeah.
But that's even on the low end, in my opinion. I think you could down tier to guys lower in the first round.
Jordan Love's going in the second round.
If I think you could get Jordan Love in a 4th or 5th round piece and maybe another piece on top.
And he's about to get paid.
And he's about to get paid. So...
And this isn't an anti-Stroud video. We both really are excited with what he's going to be able to offer from a dynasty and production perspective in the future and for the foreseeable future. Hopefully doesn't end up meaning that he's going to kill the Colts for the next 15 years. Even
probably
that's
will.
Probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But regardless, dynasty is a game of market value and playing the market. And this is just a situation where we're telling you there are a bunch of guys behind him right now in rankings that have just as high of a production ceiling as he does and have just as good a chance at being ranked where he currently is and very well could be in the future. So just try to play that market and try to get some value premium value.
Take the right deal.
And take the right deal. Don't be ridiculous about it. But the next guy we're going to have here is Dontayvion Wicks. And I kind of want to let you head this one up because he's a curious case, man.
It's just a matter of like, what do we do with any of these Packers wide receivers, right? And so when I was looking at kind of where they're being valued, like in relation to each other, because I was scrolling down here and I'm like, okay, you've got Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed is first, Christian Watson is next, and then you've got Romeo Doubs. And we thought about Romeo Doubs being on this list, but then we realized that the difference between Dontayvion Wicks and Romeo Doubs in terms of value, Romeo Doubs right now is going somewhere in the 11th round usually. I have him at 134 right now as his ADP. And Dontayvion Wicks is not that far behind him at 139. So they are 5 spots apart in ADP. So you've got 4 Packers wide receivers up this high, and one of them has to be the one to kind of take the hit. And so when I looked at Romeo Doubs' production, because again, one of these guys will lose value. One of these 2 guys most likely will lose value, absolutely. So when I looked at Romeo Doubs for him to be the guy, I looked at his production last year, and the consistency was just, it was awesome.
When he wasn't getting touchdowns, he was getting a ton of targets, and when he wasn't getting a ton of targets, he was getting touchdowns.
Exactly. So it just was kind of balanced out, and you see that in his game log. Like, he was the wide receiver 36 in PPR leagues last year, but listen to his game log: 5, 17, 6, 7, 11, 6, 16, 12, 6, 11, 11, 1, 18, 18, 5, and 18. Outside of one game, Romeo Doubs really had a floor of 5, 6 points, right? Because even in the games where he was getting 5 points, he had 6 targets. 6 points, he had 4 targets. 6 points, 3 more targets. So, again, like, this is a guy when you're looking at him compared to Dontayvion Wicks. So then I switched over and I was like, let's look at Wicks' game log. He didn't have hardly any games over 5 targets last year. Now, granted, he did have 3 of those games at the end of the year, and that's why Dontayvion Wicks' value is what it is because you saw him perform at a 24-point level in Week 18, 10 points in Week 16, 15 points in Week 15. And this is only on 72% snap share. 78% snap share, 39% snap share. Whereas for the rest of the year, mostly it was hovering more in the 40 to 60 range. But what you'll notice about, even the games that he played at the end of the year, he had 2 touchdowns in Week 18. He had 1 touchdown in Week 16. And then he had 1 touchdown again in Week 2. When you're looking at the games where he did not score a touchdown last year, he had approximately 2 games where he scored in double digits and didn't have a touchdown. And the 2 games were the one where he had 7 targets and the one where he had 4 targets but had a big 40-yard touch. Oh, no, he had a touchdown in that game. So I think he only had 1. No, here's the other one. 5 targets that game for 91 yards. So he had a couple of big plays there. So it seems less sustainable to me that Dontayvion Wicks will continue to produce than Romeo Doubs producing. Honestly, you can pick your favorite. If you are hard sold on Romeo Doubs is going to be the guy to lose value there, I'm not necessarily going to argue with that because but again, not all 4 of these guys are going to be productive. And Dontayvion Wicks
to me is the odd man out. He's the last guy that I would expect to be.
I think so too. I think most people would say that. And so what are you getting for?
Actually, no, you'd be surprised how many there are some Wicks truthers out there. Like, we might get crapped on this video.
I mean, again, but I'm going to just save us from that by saying if you think it's Romeo
Yes.
Doubs, then fine, it's Romeo Doubs. Like, I was looking at both of them and kind of thinking which one's going to decrease in value. But with Wicks, like, what are you getting around him? Tony Pollard's not that far off, as well as Keenan Allen. If you're a contender, it's a no-brainer. Josh Downs is below Dontayvion Wicks.
The second option, don't get it twisted. It's the second option. You got this?
We're taking
you good? You all right?
We're taking Jordan Love's wide receiver 4 over Josh Downs, who was the wide receiver 2 in that offense last year, who, by the way, is the wide receiver 2 in Indy this year, who, by the way, will still produce in Indy this year. Look at Josh Downs last year. In his rookie year, he had 100 targets for 770 yards.
It doesn't matter. You're just wrong.
Wicks had 580 yards, and he had 30 less targets.
Sometimes Dynasty is easy.
Those 2 in particular is mind-boggling to me. But Aaron Jones, even if you're a contender, I'm absolutely down cheering. Jermaine Burton, that's Joe Burrow's wide receiver 3 versus Jordan Love's wide receiver 4.
Eventual wide receiver 2 as well.
Likely, right?
Yes.
Not
Isaiah likely.
Even going down the list here. And Jerry Jeudy's the wide receiver 2 for Deshaun Watson, and he's being ranked a whole lot lower, 2 rounds lower, right? Jacoby Myers is the wide receiver 2 on the Raiders offense, and he's somebody who actually has been fantasy productive the last couple of years, and he's going 3 rounds later. And these prices aren't adding up to me in terms of what Wicks is going to do. Demario Douglas is a guy we think is going to break out this year, and he's going 4 rounds lower. Malachi Corley, 4.5 rounds lower. There are just a lot of guys I would pivot to here. And again, one of these Packers guys, if not multiple of them, are going to lose some serious value. So again, if you want to choose Romeo Doubs, then that's fine. But I think it's Wicks based on what I've seen in their consistency in their game log. But you can feel free to pick whichever one you want.
I definitely prefer sticking with Dobbs and selling Wicks.
I think I do too.
Hands down.
So
I'm going to keep this last one short and sweet. This is Jaylen Warren or Najee Harris. Not Najee Harris or both. You pick your choose. If you have both of them, you can sell both of them. I have absolutely no issue with it. Jaylen Warren finished last year as the running back 22 in a awful running back production year. He had 149 attempts, 784 yards, 4 touchdowns, 74 targets, 61 receptions. His receiving upside is what raises his floor so much. He's a guy that has a safe floor. That's a top 24 running back floor. and his ceiling ain't much higher than that because he is splitting carries with Najee Harris, who does get his own and his opportunity in that offense. Najee Harris, I cannot get behind investing in him because he runs through mud even when there's no mud. He is one of the slowest, most unexplosive running backs that I've seen in a long time.
I mean, just avoid the offense.
Just avoid the offense as a whole. And I look no further than the guys that he's going around. Alvin Kamara, ranked below Jaylen Warren.
Are you serious? In Dynasty?
David Montgomery ranked below Jaylen Warren.
No, make sure you drop a like on this video and make sure you... guys, that's ridiculous. We're not... Like, I'm actually starting to get triggered by that.
Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley.
Drop a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe if you play Dynasty, and also head over to flockfantasy.com/domain. You're okay. Just so people don't get pissed at me.
Matt Stafford.
Are you okay with me cutting this off?
Yeah.
Because people are going to say,
I'm just going to keep listening. I'm just going to keep listening.
This is ridiculous.
Names. Yes.
Flockfantasy.com/domain. You can use code domain when you sign up. If you go for the annual Mother Flocker tier, you get a team blueprint. Looks like this. Really cool. Also, you can buy team blueprints no matter what code you use or if you're a member of the site or not. So links in the comments. I'm going to put the links there to buy a blueprint if you want one. But get your team review before the dead period is ending in Dynasty. It's important to know what you're doing with your team this year. So we'd love to do a blueprint for you, Nathan. I do all those. Flockfantasy.com/domain again. All right. Any more names before we end?
Yeah. Javonte Williams.
See you later.
Tony
Bye.
Pollard.
Nope. End.